Yo, what is up, boys? It is your boy Xehther here, back at it again with part 2 for what if Deku could use the 8 gates. And now I'm not gonna lie to you guys, boys, I'm recording this literally about an hour after I recorded the first part, just simply due to the fact that I just loved this what if so much. This what if was so fun to record, and I just could not wait for the next day to record part 2. So you guys are getting this strictly right after I recorded part 1. Not the same day, but the very next day, seeing as right now I'm in Cali and I'm pre-recording this stuff. But that being said though, guys, stuff's gonna get a little lit. Stuff is gonna get a little lit. So with that being said, I don't want to waste you guys' time, so we're just gonna go ahead and get started. Okay, so this story starts off right after Deku had won in the fight against Bakugo and had basically started running home. After that, Deku basically proceeded to get home and eat some dinner with his mom as he then lay down in bed and he got ready to start the very next day because tomorrow he was going to train like never before. The very next day, Deku would immediately start making his training even more intense than before. And this version of Deku's 10 months of training wouldn't actually be with All Might at Dagoma Beach because, well, All Might isn't there to give him one for all. So yeah, Deku would proceed to essentially just go to Dagoma Beach all by himself on his own free accord, and he would begin to essentially start moving out the trash. As his goal, he set it for himself that he was going to clean this beach in 2 weeks, and if he cannot clean this beach in 2 weeks, then he's going to run around the whole city in under 10 minutes. And if he cannot do that, then yeah, you guys get the point. Deku is giving himself 2 weeks to clean the beach. So Deku better get started. He would go as soon as the break of dawn would start, and in under 2 weeks, Deku would clear out the entirety of Dagoma Beach. As after this, Deku would start doing, you know, his normal training, amping up the antics and using his weighted clothing to train. At this point, this version of Deku doesn't have that weird little green jumpsuit that Rock Lee does, just because I'm not giving it to him. I'm sorry. I love Rock Lee. I love my guy, but that suit, man, it's a recipe for disaster. I don't want to do this boy Deku dirty like that, so I'm not going to give him that because I'm just not that mean. Like, don't get me wrong. This version of Deku is strong, but I don't know if it's strong enough to keep him away from all the roast that he would get if I, added all that. But no, seriously though, Deku would then proceed to essentially just continue doing training just like usual. He would continue doing the same things that he's always done, just amping up the antics even more. And at this point, let's say it had been about the 2-month mark where Deku was training like crazy, working to unlock even more of the gates. At this point, Deku had a complete mastery over the opening the first and second gate all by himself. The second gate would still give him a lot of strain, and it would actually be a lot harder for him to access the third gate. At one point, he saw a slight glimpse of it, but it just wasn't enough. His body just wasn't strong enough. He would continue with the training until at about 2.5 weeks in, All Might and some other kid would come to Dagoma Beach, as Deku would basically see that All Might had just landed with some other kid, and they both got there as they're training on the wide open beach. As Deku would arrive there, right after they got there, Deku would basically get there and he would proceed to look at All Might as he asked, "Hey All Might, what are you doing here?" As All Might would look at Deku, he would then look back at Mirio and say, "Ah, yes, young man, I remember. I saw you the other day at the sludge villain incident." To which Deku would look at All Might and say, "You were there? Why didn't you step in?" All Might immediately would say, "Because I saw you on the news." And Deku would then say, "Huh. Okay, that makes a lot more sense, I guess." But he would just be thinking about that, like, if he saw me on the news, why didn't he step in? That kid, like, Bakugo could have been in serious danger. And after that, All Might would basically just try playing it off, as Deku would proceed to just say, "Alright." And after this, Deku would essentially just proceed to go on home. As Deku would pretty much proceed to essentially, after seeing All Might there, wait, no, he would not go home. I'm so sorry for saying that, but he would not go home. Deku would essentially proceed to not understand me, not go home. And he would essentially walk up to All Might as he asks, Mirio and All Might what they're doing there. As All Might says that they're here to train because he is going to be training this young man there. As Mirio would walk up to Deku, he'd begin to basically shake Deku's hand and say, "Hey, what's up? Name's Mirio." As Deku would say, "Name's Midoriya." And Mirio would look at Deku as he would proceed to say, "Huh, it's a pretty cool name." As Deku would basically look at Mirio and he would proceed to say, "So what's your quirk?" As Mirio would explain to Deku that his quirk is permeation, but it also gives him super strength. And Deku would basically think about that and say, "But that doesn't correlate at all. How does that make any sense?" And this is when Alma would basically step in the way as he would say, yeah. I mean, it doesn't make sense, but I mean, it's just the quirk that he was born with. Quirks sometimes don't make sense." As he would start to awkwardly laugh it off. And this is when Deku would start being a little weirded out by that. As Deku would essentially proceed to look at All Might and he would just not say anything. He wouldn't say a single word. He would look away from him, and this is when he would look towards Mirio as he would ask Mirio if he's powerful. I mean, if you're training with All Might, you better be, right? As Mirio would chuckle and say he is, as he would point his thumbs up. And Deku would then look at Mirio as he would say, "Perfect. I've been looking for a sparring partner. You think you want to spar with me, maybe?" As Mirio would, at this point, he still hasn't been given One For All, so he still doesn't have the super strength, but he's just saying that because All Might told him to. He's, telling people that that's quirk, that's something new he got, right? But anyways, Deku would essentially proceed to get into his fighting stance against Mirio, as All Might would then basically say, "You kids and your energy," as he would proceed to basically say, "Go!" And this is when Deku would immediately, before Mirio even gets the chance to permeate, Deku would be right behind him as he would send Mirio crashing into the sand. Mirio would permeate into the ground as Deku had jumped over there and was ready to land a deadly kick to the back of the head to end the match, but Mirio would permeate straight into the ground, and Deku would then basically realize that that's what permeation means. He would proceed to basically look for Mirio, and this is when Mirio would come out of nowhere as he says, "Power!" And he punches Deku straight in the jaw, sending him crashing away. This is when Deku would proceed to basically say, "You're pretty strong," as he would rush back and he would start using his top speed, weighted that is, as he'd be wearing nothing but jeans and, the thing that he's wearing in the thumbnail. He'd pretty much just be wearing that again. As this time Deku's wearing a shirt. This time he'd be wearing a white shirt. And he would rush back at Mirio. As Mirio's basically looking at Deku, he would proceed to permeate straight through the punch, and Deku, when he's not looking, would get kicked from behind by Mirio. As after this, Mirio would throw a devastating punch to Deku's gut, which Deku would harden his stomach, and Mirio would punch this man in his hardest steel abs as he would hurt his hand actually. And in that split second of distraction, Deku would proceed to kick Mirio up into the air as he's preparing to use the Hidden Lotus. He would kick Mirio up as Mirio would lose all sense of direction. For a second, everything went hazy and he wasn't able to see anything straight. As Deku would grab onto Mirio with his cloth, with his bandages, and he would proceed to start spinning in the air. As Mirio would permeate right at the point of impact. As Mirio would permeate straight into the ground and come back up. But before Mirio even got the chance to come back up, Deku would drop the weights as they would crash in the floor and the sand would start, rising. As instantly, as soon as that happened, Deku would say, "Gate of opening," as he would blitz Mirio before Mirio could even react. And he would use the same attack Mirio had used on him, going in for poking Mirio's eyes, and Mirio would immediately close them as Deku would send him with the uppercut straight in the jaw, kick himself up into the air, and he'd proceed to do some Liu Kang type kicks as he would kick him, do with the bicycle kick in the air, and just begin to obliterate this man Mirio. Mirio, on the other hand, would drop onto the floor and cough out some blood, as All Might would say, "And the winner is Deku," as he would look at Deku's direction and say that this kid is impressive. He would then look at Deku and ask him what his quirk is, as Deku would look at All Might and say he's actually quirkless. All Might would look straight at Deku and just be completely shocked at that revelation. Quirkless? Him? Well, how was he able to do what he had done before where, he... Okay, I needed to stop the recording real quick. I just realized Deku never had the sludge villain incident happen because All Might jumped away. So in case some of you guys are down below commenting like, "Yo, dude, what do you mean a sludge villain incident? It never ended up happening." Well, I'm going to be retconning a couple things. Number one, Deku got home and he ended up fighting against Bakugo, of course, after all that stuff. And the very next day, he went to the beach, he trained a little bit, and All Might stuff with him basically being like, yo, what's going on? That basically changes. But other than that, those are the only real things that are going to be changing. Anyways, moving on with the story. After this, All Might would basically look at Deku as he's just totally lost for words. He would ask Deku how he was able to access that much more power than he normally has, as Deku would explain to All Might that it's something called the gates, the 8 gates, as All Might would say, so that's your quirk, right, kid? And Deku would look at All Might as he would say, no, All Might, I'm serious, I'm really quirkless. As All Might would look at Deku and he would be just shocked. He'd be like, there's no way this kid's actually quirkless. You're messing with me, right? As Deku would look at All Might and he would say, not at all, All Might. I would never dream of doing that to you. As All Might would basically look at Deku, Deku would look back at him as he would begin to explain to him that inside of everybody there's life energy, and that life energy can be converted into power. There's essentially 8 gates that basically prohibit you from using your full capabilities. The gate of opening, the gate of, whatever. I forgot the names of the gates. It's been a minute and I haven't looked at that little sheet thing. Wait, I have it written down. So if anything, I could read it, but I don't really think you guys care too much about hearing what the gates are. So yeah, with that being said, Deku would basically proceed to, essentially just carry on with what he was doing, as All Might would just be in total shock still, and he just can't fathom the fact that Deku's quirkless. His body, his aura, it just seems too powerful to be quirkless, as All Might would ask Deku if he's willing to have a sparring session with him, as this is when Deku would look at All Might and say, you're serious? You want to spar with me? Deku would get so excited as he would then say, yes, this is all I wanted. I can't wait. I'm finally going to get an opponent who's worthy enough. And Mirio would look at Deku as he would say, but what about, as Deku would look at Mirio and say, oh, sorry about that. I didn't mean that you weren't worthy. It's just, All Might is All Might, And Mirio would then look at Deku as he would say, yeah, All Might, right. As Deku would then proceed to look at Mirio, as he would then say, maybe we can train a little more after we can both, after like the end of the 10 months, maybe we can do more sparrings during these months. And it looks like a good idea to start training with you guys instead of just on my own. As Mirio would smile at that, and he would then say, definitely. Deku would then proceed to look at Mirio as he would smile as well, and he would then get into a fighting stance with All Might. All Might would basically decide that he's only going to use about 50% of his power, seeing as he doesn't want to mess up this kid Deku too bad. So as soon as the battle would start, All Might would blitz at Deku, who has no weights on, and Deku would barely be able to get out of the way, as All Might would proceed to essentially throw punches and kicks straight at Deku's direction, to which Deku would basically dodge straight out of the way, and he would start ending up basically just chipping down at All Might's health and stamina. He would start slowly just punching him from each and every direction, and this one All Might would cover his face and put his guard up essentially. As Deku, if you guys look at the one that's in the thumbnail, or wait, you can't, there's gameplay, but Deku would basically pose in the way that he is in the thumbnail, and he would blitz in front of All Might as he would throw the punch, which would literally dislocate All Might's jaw. All Might would be flung, and I mean flung, to the other side of the beach, as immediately Deku would say, second gate, open! And at this point, All Might would literally crack his jaw back into place, and he would blitz over to Deku as they would both reel their arms back and go in for a strong punch, to which Deku and All Might would start clashing. They would both start going blow for blow immediately, as they are both landing attacks that are absolutely incredible. Mirio would be staring in absolute shock at what this kid is able to do, quirkless at that, as Deku would basically look at Mirio and say that it doesn't matter if he's quirkless. He's still going to become a hero, as he would throw a punch right at All Might. All Might would be sent flying, and this one All Might would decide that he needs to crank it up, as he would begin to use 70% of his power. He would blitz behind Deku and just start dominating this man. He would start ragdolling Deku. He'd pick him up by his skull and slam him onto his knees. He would grab him by the arm and smash him into the sand, which would cause Deku to cough out some blood. and Deku would be forced to jump out of the way, barely dodging All Might's Texas Smash, as Deku would get behind him and kick All Might in the leg, trying to drop him, but All Might would power up to 100 and immediately send Deku flying with a punch that would send him right back to where they started the battle, as Deku would get like angry as he would blitz back at All Might and say, "Third gate, open!" He would scream to the heavens as he says that, and Deku would activate the third gate for a brief moment. As All Might would be coming in for the finishing blow, Deku would step on the literal air and blitz behind All Might as he kicks All Might on the side of the gut on his injury, to which leads All Might to cough out so much blood, and he would then basically crash into the sand as All Might would be out completely. After he gets knocked out, All Might would revert back to his Small Might form, and this is when Mirio would look at Deku as he would say, "We have to get him to the hospital now," as Deku would say he's so sorry and that he didn't mean to hurt him that bad. And Mirio would just say that it's okay, not to worry about it. All Might knew what he was getting into when he fought you, as Deku would say he knows that's true, but he still feels sorry. Mirio would say not to worry about it and that Recovery Girl should be able to heal him. He would be rushed to Recovery Girl and she would do her thing, she would heal All Might, and afterwards All Might would just be terrified of this kid. Third gate open and he was able to literally catch All Might slacking. Third gate, and yes boys, I definitely believe that a third gate Rock Lee could definitely topple over some All Might. All Might is way more powerful than Deku if we're talking raw physical tank strength, but I'm saying that once Deku gets to like 7th gate, he'll be far surpassing All Might. But at this point, All Might is definitely stronger, but Deku just has better fighting techniques, and he's just a better fighter overall. He's been doing this for years, and he studied different forms of martial arts: boxing, karate, taekwondo, taijutsu. Yeah, he was studying a lot of stuff, and his fighting style would be very reminiscent to Rock Lee's. It's kind of like he was Rock Lee's reincarnation, which is pretty much kind of what he is, just not really, since his eyebrows aren't that bushy. His eyebrows are kind of bushy if you look at the one in the thumbnail, but it's aight. But yeah, Deku would essentially proceed to help All Might get back up, and after a week of All Might healing, he would arrive at Dagoma Beach to see Mirio and Deku sparring once again. All Might would get some flashbacks to what had happened, and this is when All Might would decide that they're going to need to do a lot of strength training for both of them, seeing as they both need to get even more ripped than they are now. So for the next 8 months, Deku and Mirio would do sparring sessions every day, and Mirio would be granted One for All, with Deku being informed of what One for All is after All Might told him everything about what happened with the Small Might form. Deku would know all about it, and All Might would have actually asked Deku if he wanted it instead. Mirio also would have asked Deku why doesn't he take One for All. I mean, Mirio already has a quirk, but if Deku was to have that ability, he would be unstoppable. He may even be more powerful than All Might, as Deku would have really thought about it, but at the end of the day, he would have said that he would just feel horrible if he was to take away something that was meant for Mirio, as well as not go through with being a quirkless hero. That's his goal. He wants to be the first ever quirkless hero, and well, he's not gonna go away from that just because there's a quirk in front of him. It's so tempting, and even though he loves All Might and he's his idol, he just can't do it. He wants to become a hero on his own power. No quirks, nothing. He wants to prove to the world that quirkless people can be strong too. You can be strong too, by the way. I'm talking to you guys, my fans. I love y'all. Anyways, that's enough of that love. But no, Deku would basically proceed to keep training for the 8 months, and 10 months would go by as Deku at this point has a full access to the 4th gate. The gate of I have no idea what the 4th gate is called. I think it's called the Gate of Pain. Yeah, I looked it up. I'm sorry. I'm not going to lie to you guys. I looked it up. It's the Gate of Pain, right? Deku would basically be able to unlock the Gate of Pain at this point. And the man is broken, to put it lightly. This man is absolutely goated at this point. So yeah, by the end of the 10 months, Deku's basically looking like the one in the thumbnail. Muscle mass the exact same, and his taijutsu prowess just went through the roof. He was training with somebody who was even more who was training with All Might, for God's sake. And Mirio, come on, who has one Fraud at this point can use 40%. Deku can use the fourth gate, Mirio can use 40%, and they're going to be literally like best friends. This is going to be some of that homie love, you feel that vibe? But anyways, no, seriously though. But Deku would basically, after the last day of training, Deku would thank All Might and Mirio for all their help, telling them that if it wasn't for them, he wouldn't have gotten this far during these 10 months. As they would of course say, you know, we're welcome, and Deku would have actually put Mirio onto his training routine, which actually Mirio couldn't even keep up with for the first 6 months. So it took him a while to get used to it, but he was able to do like the medium version of the training by the end of the 10 months. So yeah, Mirio's getting powerful as well. I know this isn't called What If Deku and Mirio Were Best Friends, but it might as well be. But anyways, Deku would basically just be getting ready to go to the quirk exam, or no, the UA exam, as he'd basically walk in there and there wouldn't actually be no situation where he meets Uraraka. Instead, when he's walking by, he would actually see a girl with some blonde hair. As Deku would see her, and she would be quite beautiful, but Deku doesn't have time to be, you know, looking at girls. Right now, he has to be focused on the goal at hand, which is, of course, you know, grinding hard and getting strong. Come on now, Deku got to do all that stuff. But yeah, Deku would basically not really pay too much attention to that, and he'd go back to focusing on his exam, to which Deku would get the same scores in canon, seeing as Deku's not dumb by any chance. He's smart and powerful. Those are two things that any great hero needs. So yeah, Deku would ace the exam, and he actually wouldn't get called out for stuttering, seeing as this version of Deku knows how to talk in his own head, kind of like our, you know, our likable anime characters, you know, the ones that be having their monologues inside their heads. Yeah, just like that. After this, Deku would basically go outside to the training grounds where they're going to be fighting the robots, and Deku would just start stretching as President Mike would basically go on the speaker and he would say, "There are no countdowns in a real battle. Go, go, go." Deku actually didn't even hear any of that because he was staring at the blonde girl at the front of the gate, and Deku just couldn't keep his eyes off of her. And as soon as he saw everybody run away, he would barely notice what's going on, as immediately Deku would just blitz over there. He'd be wearing 0 weights, keep in mind, and Deku would immediately say, "Open! Gate of opening," as he would immediately blitz towards a bunch of robots and just start destroying them left and right. You would hear, "Leave Hurricane!" and, you know, other ones of you know, Rock Lee's attacks. I honestly don't know what his name for his attacks are called, but you would hear a lot of Leaf Hurricane getting yelled in the background in terms of how Deku's doing. With the first gate of opening, Deku would end up destroying a good solid 35 robots, and Deku would decide that that's not enough. He needs to go further, show that somebody quirkless can do it, as he would then say, "Open! Gate of Healing!" as he would immediately start blitzing the robots faster. He would start destroying them at a faster rate, getting 80 robot points respectively. And this is when Deku would decide that it's not enough, as he would say, "Open! Gate of Life!" as he would blitz at the robots, and at this point he would destroy 300 of them. As Deku would then say, "Open! Gate of Pain!" as he would immediately blitz at the robots. And it's at this point that Deku, for like 5 minutes, would just go on a rampage, just completely bloodlusted for these robots, as he would get a total of 500 robot points, crushing All Might's record of 300 something. And yeah, you don't think that's impressive? I don't know what you will, but yeah, Deku would do that quirkless, might I add. And, you know, all he has is 8 gates. I mean, it's pretty OP, but, you know, he's still quirkless, so yeah. Anyways, Deku, after that, would essentially proceed to just start sweating as he's just lost for breath. That took a lot out of him. And Deku's skin was pouring out, you know, the red aura that Rock Lee had, but he was able to control it in the way that Might Guy does. There's, of course, still drawbacks, but they're lessened because Deku is a master of the 4th gate. he can use that perfectly. Even better than Rock Lee can, actually. So yeah, Deku can use the 8 gates very, very well. And Deku, at this point, would basically just be catching his breath for a minute as he would hear the ground rumble. As he does, he would look towards his left side as he would see the girl who was using a bunch of technology to destroy the robots. He thinks that maybe she might be quirkless as well. But yeah, that is the case. And in case you guys are wondering, I'm pretty sure most of you guys already know, this is Melissa. She's of course taking a quirk exam because she's not about to take the easy way out. That's not the type of person Melissa Shield is. So yeah, All Might forgot to tell Deku about Melissa, but yeah, she's quirkless too, and she wants to become the first pro quirkless hero as well as Deku. So I'm guessing they're gonna be a good power couple later on. Anyways, that being said, Deku would see as a piece of rubble would drop down, and it would actually almost drop on Melissa, almost crushing her, as immediately Deku would blitz over there, grabbing her in his arms as Deku would jump up as high as he can to the robot, throw Melissa in the air, and say, ah, as he would throw a punch. It would be more manly than that. I'm kind of copying Rock Lee's instead of what Deku's would sound like. And it'd be more like, ah, as he would throw the punch straight at the 0-pointer, which would just crush in the same way that the original version of Deku had done, the same output of power. As Deku would literally step on the air and grab Melissa, as he would land on the ground, and right as he does, Deku's body would just drop down to the floor as he would be completely unconscious. Deku would basically get picked up by Melissa, and she would proceed to pretty much throw him over her shoulder as she would carry him all the way to Recovery Girl. Now Deku is literally like 2% body fat, so he's pretty heavy. And Melissa would have been having a pretty tough time trying to, take care of this man Deku. So yeah, she ends up taking him to Recovery Girl, and Deku would wake up a couple minutes later finding out what had happened. As Melissa would be by Deku's bedside, she would basically thank him for what he had done. And this is when Deku would thank her for, saving him as well. She took him to Recovery Girl. As Recovery Girl would walk inside and be like, okay, lovebirds, you guys are free to go. You're woken up, you'll be fine. It's just stamina loss, you just have to rest for a couple of days. As Deku would say, noted, as he would proceed to look at Melissa and ask if she's doing anything tomorrow. As Melissa would look at Deku and say, no, I'm not. As immediately Deku would look at her, smile, and say, well, I guess I'll see you on the next part of what if Deku could use the 8 gates. And yes, I know, guys, I low-key, I set that up perfectly for the ending, I think. Let me know if you guys enjoyed that. But yeah, this is pretty much where we're going to be leaving off. What if Deku could use the 8 gates? Part 2. If you guys want the next installment for what if Deku could use the 8 gates, make sure to smash that like button, comment down below what you guys think about Melissa x Deku, and also be hyped for the next part, because in the next part there's going to be crazy training for Deku. We're going to be covering the quirk assessments, the heroes versus villains, and the USJ arc all in one. So if you guys are hyped for that, make sure to drop a comment down below, report your attendance down below, tell a friend to tell another friend, and remember, boys, I love each and every single one of you guys. It has been your boy Xehther, and I am out. Peace.